It's 1974 and I'm 14 years old and already into the drug and party scene, which was getting expensive. So in order to pay for my lifestyle, I became a small-time street dealer. In the beginning, business was good and I felt on top of the world. However, that would quickly change on one Friday night at Bramley City Center Mall, a place where I did most of my sales. That night, I got a little careless being discreet with transactions and attracted the attention of mall security, who then called the police. I was arrested and taken to 51 Division, where I was charged with trafficking in drugs. After my release, I was pretty shaken up, but not enough to stop. I still had a stash of LSD and PCP, so the next day, my friend Jerry and I mixed both drugs together and consumed them. As the drugs started taking effect, we realized we may have taken too much. We started tripping pretty hard, so we decided to go outside and try to walk it off. While walking through a green belt, dark clouds appeared and a blast of torrential rain descended on us. Within seconds, we were soaked to the bones, but the storm quickly passed and a strong gust of wind swirled in and blew us completely dry. Jerry and I were convinced we had just witnessed a supernatural event. As we were trying to make sense of what had just happened, a strange premonition came over me, and I heard a voice call my name. It warned me if I continued down the path I was going, it wouldn't end well. I immediately acknowledged that this was God speaking to me. I grabbed Jerry by the arm and asked him if he heard the voice as well, but he did not. Gradually, the intensity of our LSD/PCP trip started to wear off, but I was still deeply moved by the voice I heard. I decided to heed its warning and threw away all my drugs. I was determined to turn my life around and follow God's commands. However, I only lasted a couple of weeks. During that time, I didn't think of going to church or reading my Bible. I had no one to guide me. I was trying to be good on my own force of will, which in the end proved to be weak. It wasn't long before I was back to my old ways, but now I carried the guilt of failing God and myself. As a result, getting high wasn't as fun anymore. No matter how stoned I got, I just felt empty. Regardless, as time passed into another year, my encounter with God was becoming a distant memory. But as much as I wanted to, I couldn't completely forget what had happened. And believe me, I tried. I was doing more drugs and living more recklessly, but it was pointless. No matter what, I couldn't escape the fact that God spoke to me. And although I could see what God had warned me against was now becoming a reality, I was powerless to do anything about it. It appeared my fate was sealed. There was no hope. But then something happened. One day at the mall, I bumped into an older friend of mine whom I hadn't seen in about a month. His name was Garth. What happened was Garth overdosed on a highly potent drug that caused him to experience severe hallucinations for days. He literally went crazy and was put into a mental institution. When I saw Garth again, I figured he had just been released and was perhaps looking to have a good time. However, when I approached him, I noticed he was holding an oversized white book. It was a family Bible. It turned out, while getting treatment, Garth gave his life to Jesus and was now a born-again Christian. I was truly taken back. He was the last person on earth I thought would ever turn to religion. I was profoundly moved by his conversion, and part of me wanted what he had, just not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I doubled down on the drugs and partying, but this only left me feeling more unfulfilled. There was a longing within my soul, a fire I couldn't quench. And with no remedy at hand, getting wasted was the only way I knew to dull the pain. I was on a path of self-destruction, and it was only a matter of time before I crashed and burned. But there was something else going on in my life that would ultimately change my fate. It seemed God wasn't finished with me yet, whether it was through an evangelist on TV that I happened to watch out of boredom, or a street preacher that witnessed to me as I passed him by. Without being aware of it, God was preparing my heart to receive his Son, Jesus Christ. And so it happened. On a Saturday night in the summer of 1977, I was at a party. I was at a party that was hosted by a young couple who had a 2-year-old boy. At the party, there was about a dozen of mostly guys who were smoking weed, drinking beer, and dropping acid. This was definitely not an environment for a child to be in, and it bothered me to see this little boy being exposed to it. However, nobody else, including the parents, seemed to care. Midway through the night, I had enough. I decided to leave. As I was about to make my exit, the little boy came up to me with a black marker and a large sheet of paper. He asked me to draw him a horse. In that moment, something overcame me, and my heart melted. I got down on the floor and drew him a horse. It wasn't my best work, but the boy was pleased. I walked outside, I stopped, and in a moment of silence, gazed into the starlit sky. All was calm. I felt at peace, and with a soft certainty, I whispered, "I'm coming home. I'm coming home, Jesus." There was no turning back. The life I knew was a thing of the past. I was born again.